Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another session. हम लोगों का COVID, Ramzan and all of that की वजह से sessions थोड़े से slow कर दिए थे और it's a pleasure to have one of our very own and mashallah when you see someone जिनका a pride of performance in NESPAC 2020, mashallah. Asif Junaid Karim Saab, let me give a brief intro. We all know him. He's the brains and bronze behind contract division for the past 2-3 years. लेकिन दुनिया उनको वो कहते हैं जो talent or brain drain. Sorry, Asaf, I'm going to say it again. It's a brain drain, and good companies, good people are picked up, and talent is always valued in around the world. So he's been picked up by another company in Qatar. So mashallah, he's right now in quarantine and is very kind enough to give a lecture on contract management और हम इनसे करवाते रहा करेंगे. Let me give you a brief, professional, proper introduction of Asif Saab. Asif Junaid Karim Saab has an 18 years of domestic and international experience in project management, dispute resolution, and construction contract administration. And he has an extensive experience of drafting engineer decisions, technical reporting, presentations, contractual correspondence with clients and contractors. आपका कॉन्ट्रैक्ट डिवीजन को बड़ा रिवाइटलाइज और पूरा रीऑर्गेनाइज करने में इनका बहुत मेजर रोल है. Then he has a strong experience of negotiation, value engineering, contract administration. He has been majorly part of preparation and assessment of contractor, subcontractor time and cost claims. He's familiar with SCL protocol and CPM techniques. He is as well as an expert in the latest software related with planning and EOT claims assessment, such as P3, P6, PCM for claims, assessment/contract management, AutoCAD, and even Office. He was the best performance award receiver for the NESPAC's Employee Year Award in 2020. He has been a best performance based on performance nominated as well as for Ishad Ahmed Silver Medal for the year 2009 NESPAC. आप पहले भी NESPAC में रहे. Then he left NESPAC and came back, or mashallah, again he's been picked up on the base of his talent. So now I'm hand over to Asif Saab and to Bismillah and begin. Mashallah, we have a good crowd. Welcome back again to everyone. And sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. To begin with, I'll just add in some more into it, that after completing my bachelor's, I have done master's in transportation engineering from UT Lahore. And later on, when I was doing my contracts work, so I realized that the transportation engineering or other things are not giving me like an edge. So then I realized that let me just start off with an LLM in construction law and arbitration. So this was a degree which gave me like a plus in all these years after doing it. And there are very few people in the market who have done this course in construction law and arbitration. And by virtue of this, I've been admitted to the Fellowship of Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, which is a UK-based, very prestigious organization which certifies these arbitrators and everyone. And I'm a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers. So I've just arrived in Qatar like 3-4 days ago, and then passing my quarantine at the moment. So it's a good time to have this training session going. I hope everybody of you can hear me properly and can see these slides now. As you can see, that contracts management is a very important thing during construction, and all of us, they should have some gist of it when we are doing when we are working at site, or otherwise as well in office also. Contracts is a very important field. And you can see the picture behind this slide. It shows King Abdullah Financial District in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. You can see the complexity of this project. One single contractor is not assigned to this project. There are a lot of contractors which are doing this work simultaneously. So the complexity comes in when there is like integration of different contractors on this project and interlinking each other's work with each other contractors. So problems come in and disputes come when the site is not accessed or given access to the other contractor at proper times. So aims and objectives. The main aim is to equip construction professionals to prudently, confidently, and equitably deal with contract administration matters during construction. I will not go into too much detail of everything because 2 hours is a time in which I can just give you some gist of contract administration in construction. So effective communication in line with contract terms, this is very important that too many people lack in this field. We do write correspondence, we do reply to contractor letters, and we do reply to employer letters, but those letters are not addressed in a contractual way. So it needs to be emphasized that the communication which we do with the employers or the contractors should be backed with proper contract terms. Then there are the project controls. Too many controls induced in a project increases the cost of the project, and too little controls, they will lead to delays and other issues in the project. So for a project to be successful, there should be a right amount of control inside the project. Like for a project which is as big as a dam or an airport project, proper controls needs to be there so that every manager of that area knows what he has to do on this project. Like schedule control, there should be a planning manager, financial control, separate manager for this, quality control manager, document control manager. So all these fields are controlled by independent managers on big projects. But once the project size is small, then we don't need to induce all these managers into the project. They will definitely increase the cost of the project. But then the resident engineer or the project manager needs to have a grasp on all these controls, that he needs to know how to control the project. Major stakeholders in a project. The biggest stakeholder is the client, and then comes the funding agencies from which we get loans, and then there are the consultants, the design, the authorities, the design consultants like NESPA, and then there are the specialized consultants when people like when NESPA cannot design anything or it's a specialized, like for example lifts or other specialized equipment, then we get some help from other consultants as well, some foreign consultants. So they're also part of the stakeholders. Then there are the construction contractors, one of the main stakeholders of the project, and the end users who have used that project at the end of the project's completion. So these are the major stakeholders in any project. What is a contract? In simple words, contract is meeting of the minds, which under contract law is also known as consensus addendum. This term I learned when I was doing my LLM degree, that consensus addendum is the meeting of the minds. So a contract is an agreement between two parties, one called the contracting party or the employer, and the other called the contracted party or the contractor, to perform a defined scope of work for an agreed sum of money. So the contracts, it can be between a consultant and employer, but for the purpose of this construction or for the purpose of this presentation, it is between the employer and the contractor, which we have to administer at site. Project management professionals' main duties and responsibilities. Resident engineers are qualified professionals. This is a PEC requirement also. They need to possess the ability to manage time efficiently and resolve complex problems. Since they work with construction teams extensively, They also need to be able to provide technical advice akin to construction methodologies and, of course, be able to handle cost estimate requirements. So basically, when a person can handle all these issues, he can be assigned as a resident engineer or project manager. That's why you can see that majority of the projects, senior people in NESPAC are assigned as a resident engineers. Apart from overseeing and monitoring construction staff, resident engineers also manage everyday correspondence between the contractor and the employer, handle daily logs, project documents, and material calculations, which are essential to the success of every construction project. REs also ensure that the right materials are brought at site and used in every part of the project. They also ensure compliance with safety regulations. Here in the Gulf, safety regulations are very important at a project, and any safety lacuna or safety lapse costs contractors dearly. But in Pakistan, I didn't see too much importance being given to this area of safety regulations. People are not wearing harnesses or not wearing safety hats or safety shoes or anything. They're just working at site. So it is need of the hour that we also need to upgrade our safety standards and need some improvements in this field. Purposes of signing a contract, there are many different purposes, but the main ones are a contract agreement establishes a legal relationship between the parties, clearly identifying the purpose of the agreement and the modus operandi to execute. The legal relationship between the parties, that the contract agreement can be taken to a court of law as well. And the terms agreed in the contract agreement will, the court will look into those contract terms and will then give its decision based on those terms. Recently on Orange Line train project, there was this, the contractor went into arbitration, but our plea was that the arbitration cannot be started unless and until the contractor uses other dispute resolution methods mentioned in the contract, like the engineer decisions. So the court also ruled that yes, the contractor needs to get the engineer decisions before going into arbitration. So this is one of the examples in which the legality or the legal status of a contract agreement can be impressed upon. A contract agreement clearly establishes the risks and obligations of each party. It spells out the risks and obligations. For example, if the contractor delays a project, he knows that he will be liable to penalty. So risks and obligations of each party are spelled into the contract agreement. Provides means to assess and measure performance. One of the requirements of a contract agreement is the contractor submits a plan at the start of the project, known as the baseline program. So you can measure the performance of the contractor on that program. If that program is not submitted, then it's only hypothesis that people are just saying that the contractor is slow, but you cannot measure that slow progress with any reference thing. So this program is very essential to measure progress on performance. Give means by which breaches or defaults can be identified or established. For example, the payment delay by the employer. So the repercussions of the payment delay are there in the contract, and the contractor can always invoke the suspension clause when he's not given payments at proper times, or he can also terminate the contract. So there are mechanisms for all these things, provide mechanism for financial controls when the contractor is going to get paid of his work and how he will get paid. So all these things are mentioned in the contract agreement, which both parties should read properly before signing the contract. To manage claims and disputes. As I said, construction is a very complicated process, as the picture which I showed you in the beginning of this presentation. So it's a very complicated process, and by virtue of this complexity, claims in construction industries are inevitable. All the project managers sitting in this presentation will agree with this, that claims in construction, it's not during the start of the project that the contractor will start his claims, but during the end of the project, the claims will come in, and these are inevitable, and therefore its effective management is necessary to resolve issues and avoid bad taste between parties. It's very important that proper correspondence is kept with the contractor throughout the project, and the employer is kept updated about all these things. Because at the end of the project, when claims comes in and the consultant has not put in proper letters and correspondences at the proper times, then that will be a negative thing on part of the consultant. Common types of contract being used in Pakistan. These are the remeasured contracts in which the contractor executes the works and then gets his payment after measurement. And the lump sum fixed price contracts are the ones that everything is fixed. The contractor comes in and just executes and gets the final price. Design build contract is the EPC nature of the contract, in which the engineering, procurement, and construction is the responsibility of the contractor. And he just does everything for the employer and hands it over at the completion. By default, this is one of the most commonly used FIDIC forms of contract, 1987, 4th edition. So the general conditions which I will be referring to in this presentation also will be from this FIDIC 1987. The conditions of contract. There are two parts to this to the conditions of contract. Part one of the general conditions of contract. We do not change anything from this part. Everything is kept as it is. Any changes or which the employer may need or the consultant advises to the employer are to be done in part two of the conditions of particular application of the COPA. Documents forming part of the contract. There are certain documents also which are side by side to a contract. That is the contract agreement itself, the letter of acceptance, conditions of contract, special provisions, drawings, specifications, bill of quantities, any other documents specified, like the tender negotiation may also become part of the contract agreement or other thing which both parties agree to. So when these documents, they all form together as a contract agreement. Objectives of this training: understanding duties and responsibilities delegated by the employer to the engineer, and from the engineer to the engineer's representative, resident engineer in most cases. So we should not overtake our responsibilities and duties when we are working at site. And majority of the times, the duties and responsibilities which have not been delegated to the engineer or the engineer's representative are the ones which have cost implications or time implications. So anything which increases the cost in a project or like absolves the contractor of liability, for example, the taking over certificate, giving extension of time, these things are not given to the engineer unless and until there's specific approval from the client to do so. So in these cases, the engineer, after doing his work, he submits everything to the employer for his approval. And once the approval is received, then he gives it to the contractor, issues the recommendation. Contractual matters to be addressed at the time of commencement of project. There are a lot of things at the start of the project that the contractor has to submit to the engineer and employer. Like insurances and performance guarantees should be in proper names and valid throughout the project's duration. The importance of kickoff meeting. The very first meeting in a project is known as a kickoff meeting. And that is very important to spell out all these deliverables which the contractor has to give to the employer and the contents to be addressed during such meetings. Issuance of letter to commence, which contains the commencement date of the project. Obtaining detailed program of works in Primavera or similar software and getting consent from the employer. The contractor may submit his program with his tender also. Sometimes he submits a basic planning, but detailed planning is submitted by the contractor who wins the project. So that has to be submitted within 14 days. And if the engineer did not find any issues with the plans, he has to get the approval from the employer. And then once the approval is given, that program is called the consented baseline program. So every monitoring or every progress monitoring or the monthly progress report is based on that consented baseline program. So any delays which comes in the project or other issues which the contract faces are measured against that consented baseline program. If during the project the engineer feels that the consented baseline program is not giving the appropriate results, there are a lot of variations coming in and a lot of things have changed, then he can request or instruct the contractor to revise the baseline program. And then he has to submit a revised baseline program. Again, the process continues and the engineer has to give the approval after reviewing it. Effective communication skills, establishing project controls. I've already mentioned about these two things. Effective document control procedures to be adopted. If document control is absent in most of our projects in Pakistan. So whatever we do is basically kept in folders. Hard copies are kept in folders. We don't have a practice of keeping soft copies. So in this age, I think a proper document control procedure should be there, and there should be like a scanned documents of all correspondences, like whichever is incoming or outgoing. So they need to be scanned and properly filed in proper folders and archived. Because when I was working in Dubai, I saw that document control was very critical in any project. And if anybody wants any document, if it's not retrieved in like 5 minutes, it's a big problem. So we used to send emails to the document control people working at sites asking about certain letters. So those letters, they came to us within like 5-10 minutes. So if this is the case, then things become easier for the contracts team to give their advice or work on those issues which they have put the employer or the contractor has sent to the contracts team. But if the documents are not coming in, like when I was working in ESPA, I didn't find that any document laws being prepared. Only the laws which are being prepared are on the registers. So that is not, you cannot go through those registers very easily. Then the how to interpret the clauses of the contract. The clauses of the contract is when a contracts person looks at the clauses, he looks at them with different angles. It's not like interpretation is a very tricky business in construction. You have to be very clear when you are interpreting a clause, because contractor is going to interpret it in his own benefit. And what the consultant has to do is he has to remain impartial when he has to interpret the clauses. If ambiguity arises between different documents of the contract, then which part to take, the priority of documents. This is mentioned in the contract that if there is any discrepancy, then these will prevail over the other documents. So you have to look at those priority. Monthly, fortnightly progress reports and its format. Every month, a progress report is generated at site, or maybe every fortnightly. So that contains the progress achieved in that fortnight or in that particular month. And people should review when they are preparing these documents, because at times they copy paste from the previous month or the previous fortnight and they keep things unchanged. So if you're making a monthly or fortnightly progress reports, my advice to you is to every time go through the complete report and make proper changes. Monitoring progress through consented program, issuing timely instructions and avoiding delays. Sometimes the engineer gives instructions to the contractor to change certain sequence of works or to change certain material. So in all of these cases, all these instructions should be proper, documented, and given to the contractor. And don't think that the contractor is there to do things for free or for gratis. He is there to do business. So if there are instructions which has time or cost implications, work out those implications, get the approval from the employer, and then give a proper instruction or a variation to the contractor. These methods, if you follow, will surely reduce the amount of disputes on a project. Variations on the project and the impact on time for completion and additional costs to be worked out, as I said. Objectives: timely response to inspection requests or other clarifications. Again, the people working at site, they need to have proper, like no delay on part of the consultant should be there if the contractor raises any request for inspection requests, may it be material inspection request, material submittal, or shop drawing submittal, or any other submittal which the contractor submits to the engineer needs to be timely responded. In case of project delays, properly documenting the start date, the end date, and activities affected due to individual delay events. I have seen letters in which like there is no proper like mentioning of what activities are in delay. The letters are generic in nature. Like it is written that the contractor's progress is found slow. So kindly ensure to improve the resources or something like that. But it should be like proper documenting which activities in delay. And if he has submitted a program of works, the consented baseline program is there. You need to refer to the date as well, that this activity was supposed to start on this and this date, and so many days have elapsed, but the activity has not yet started. So this letter will have some meaning and some effect. And if there is some counter argument on part of the contractor, he can also send that I have not been given access to the site, and or other reasons he may give, but things will be properly documented at a later stage. If there is a claim coming in from the contractor on that issue, then you will have some documents to rely upon. So letters of slow progress should clearly identify the activities in delay. It should not be generic in nature. Understanding the importance of notice and sending effective notices. This is also very important. At the closeout of the project, the contractor is very lazy on the project because he knows that his project is almost complete. He's at that time taking more interest into gaining more business opportunities elsewhere, but on that specific project, he has slowed down. So if that is the case and the engineer needs to send notices of slow progress, maybe during the project or at the end, so they should be effective. Like you need to mention the clauses under which you are issuing that notice. Without the reference to contract clauses, the notices are not sufficient. Understanding the dispute resolution process. Like what I said is the engineer's decision, the arbitration or the mediate. First is the engineer's decision, then amicable settlement, and then arbitration. So these are the processes of dispute resolution process. And finally, the project closeout formalities. Before giving the taking over certificate or the final completion certificate, you need to know what formalities needs to be taken, what documents the contractor has to provide. It can be manuals or it can be warranties from different manufacturers regarding the equipment he has installed. So all those things, when the contractor submits, then the proper closeout formalities can be initiated by the engineer. As a resident engineer, what clauses are important? It's basically time and instructions and variations and quantities and payments. So these are the important clauses which the resident engineer should be aware of. He should read all the clauses which are in the contract agreement or like the FIDIC contract. All clauses relating to these things they do have a certain importance. So these clauses should be thoroughly gone through by project staff, not only the resident engineer, but all other staff as well who are working on that project, the AREs. Timelines and time bars. At the moment, as I'm not it's not very comfortable for me to have a Zoom meeting because I cannot share these clauses very easily on this platform, but I'll just go through them. Timelines are basically that the contractor needs to provide certain things within a specified period of time. So if you go through these subclauses in FIDIC, subclause 2.5 is relating with instructions in writing and submissions of securities, subclause 10.1. All these subclauses, the submission of insurance, subclause 25.1, notice to commence, subclause 41.1, program submission, subclause 14.1, approvals, engineer employee review process, interim payments, subclause 60.2, engineer's decision, subclause 67.1. So all these subclauses, they mention a timeline within which certain thing has to be done. If these things are not done in those particular times, the contractor or the other party is said to be in default. And then the repercussions are also mentioned in those clauses. Time bars. Time bars are those things in which if the contractor fails to perform something within the time, then he has lost his claim, may it be for extension of time or for cost. So extension of time, if you go through subclauses 44.1, 44.2, 44.3, the FIDIC says that if the contractor did not submit his claim within the specified time, he will not be, the claim will not be admissible then. So similarly, notice of arbitration is also to be served within a specific time after the engineer decision has been issued. If the arbitration notice has not been issued, then under the contract, that arbitration notice does not carry any weight. Majority of the times, the contractor tells the engineer that you are biased or you are not impartial. So, because they always want favor from the engineer on their part. So, the thing is that impartiality and fairness is a very, it's not a very straightforward term, but the thing is that the contractor and the employer has signed the contract agreement and they have agreed to these clauses. And once these clauses have been agreed to, all the provisions of the clauses are automatically, they have to now consider. And the responsibility of the engineer is just to implement those provisions to the contractor or to the employer. They have to refer these conditions or the provisions. So biasness is not there once the engineer just refers to those clauses. It's the agreement between the parties. What can the engineer do? This is a clause which I will just go through. Clause 20.1, FIDIC 1999 Red Book. If the contractor considers himself to be entitled to any extension of the time for completion and or any additional payment under any clause of these conditions or otherwise in connection with the contract, the contractor shall give notice to the employer describing the event or circumstance giving rise to the claim. The notice shall be given as soon as practicable and not later than 28 days. Now, this is a timeline, 28 days. The repercussion will be in the below paragraph. After the contractor became aware or should have become aware of the event or circumstance. If the contractor fails to give notice of a claim within such period of 28 days or such shorter or other period expressly stated in the contract, like the particular conditions, if there's a different period mentioned in the particular conditions, then you have to go by that period. Then this 28 days period will not work. The time for completion shall not be extended. Look how clear they are. The time for completion shall not be extended. The contractor shall not be entitled to additional payment, and the employer shall be discharged from all liability in connection with the claim. If the contractor did not submit, otherwise the conditions they apply that how to work out that entitlement. So you can see how clear this is, that if 28-day period is not the contractor not submitted a notice, or the interim or detailed particulars also. So you will not be entitled to any further claim or entitlement. Project controls. Depends on project's complexity and importance. Like I said in the beginning, if it's a complex or a big important project, then the project controls, proper controls have to be provided in a project. Too much control can significantly increase the project cost, whereas too little control can induce delays, errors, and poor quality. Good project control team ideally leads to timely and within budget completion of project and with fewer disputes. It is, I think, very reasonable to say that if everybody is doing his work, then there will be very fewer disputes. But if one person is given all these responsibilities, then there will be problems coming in. You will not be very efficient in dealing with all these areas, and the problems will automatically come in. In order for effective project controls, following positions are essentially required. They're the planning or contracts manager, cost manager, quality manager, document control manager. By now, you must have realized that all these positions are very important in a project. I have a question that how too much project control increases project cost. So the answer to this question is that planning or contracts manager, they come with a salary, they come with an office space, they come with their own team. Similarly, the cost manager, quality manager, document control manager, all these people, they need space to sit, they need salaries, they need their own teams, and they need the other indirect costs. So I think that will make it clear that project, if you increase all these positions in a project, the cost of the project increases. You can certainly ask questions whenever you want. You can stop me there and then you can ask questions. That would be easy to address at the proper time. At the end of the presentation, you can ask at that time as well, but you can ask any time which you want. Okay, so these are the project controls, which in smaller projects, there are lesser controls, and in big projects, there are more controls given in. Okay, I have another question. Although there is no contractual position, namely project manager in the construction contract, but PM plays a role between the employer and the contractor in our contracts. Can a PM, if qualifies the position of the engineer, act as engineer in the contract? This is, I think, the management decides. In NESPAC, specifically, the management of the vice president or the head of the division, they decide, because project managers usually they remain in the head office and they manage or they overlook the projects. They can be project manager for like one project manager can be assigned to different projects as well. So this is just to control the cost of that project number which is issued. But at site, this is the engineer's representative who is assigned at site, and he is there to look into all these issues. Another question, why don't pay cost on project control, but we are happy to make project delay and cost overrun, which is much more as compared to cost of project control. In Pakistan, you know that the funding is a problem in Pakistan. Any employer, they want to cut short on the cost of the project. So this is the easiest way that the employer can like reduce the cost by not hiring these positions and not giving proper cost to the consultant so that he can hire these positions on a project. But they learn it the hard way when the disputes come in and the progress is delayed. Then at that time, they realize the importance that if these people were there from start of the project, then the issues and disputes would not be there. And that is the reason in these Gulf countries, all these positions are very important. And they are properly hired at proper times also. So this is an issue in Pakistan or the developing countries that cost of the project has to be remain in a budget. Or there's another question. All works are being put on RE in Pakistan and mentioned in slide that required managers should be for a project. Please comment. As I said that in Pakistan, we have cost constraints. So one person is responsible for too many things to do. So he is basically a jack of all trades. But if you need to ace all these things, then need to have proper people at proper positions. You cannot deny the importance of these managers on a project. If there are these managers, the risk and responsibilities, they come down on one person. RE is responsible in the overall construction of the overlook the specifications that all these project specifications are being met, and other people like the planning manager, the contracts manager look into the delays of the project. Everything is coming on time, whether the long lead items, the contractor is issuing the orders at times, proper times. So he has to identify all these lapses from the program. So I think project control should be there, but again, in an environment like Pakistan, this needs to be discussed with the employer at the time of the start of the project, because NESPAC has to be competitive, has to remain competitive with other consultants as well when they are putting in their cost proposal. Okay, now effective communication. Understand, analyze, and then respond. Don't respond in urge. Like, for example, if a contractor writes a nasty letter, it is not important that you just right away write a reciprocatory letter to the contractor and without thinking anything about it. So if you receive a letter from the employer, understand, analyze, and then respond. See for references to clauses if provided. If the contractor has mentioned certain clauses, there are like importance of those clauses. Go through those clauses and understand them. And if you don't understand them, then you should take help from other divisions as well. Like, for example, a lot of project management divisions used to send letters to contracts division, where I was working, for like expert input on certain things. So we used to look into those clauses, different clauses, to help the project management divisions in the response to the contractors' letters or employer letters. Go through the referred clauses to understand them. Draft a clear response addressing the concerns raised with reasoning and supported by conditions of contract. Try to avoid unnecessary delays in sending a response. Get inputs from relevant divisions for technical specialty inputs. This is the case in majority of the projects in NESPAC, that we do, the project management team, they do send memos to the project, other specialty divisions like structure division, like power and mechanical, to get inputs, and then they do send a proper reply to the contractor. So I think majority of project management people in NESPAC, they are taking this inputs from the relevant divisions. Record keeping. As I said before, that this is the most important part of effective contract administration. If I'm a contracts manager, I need to know that what has been discussed between the parties in a project. Like, for example, when I've reached here in Qatar, I'm assigned the project of the Qatar airport. It's not the start of the project that I'm joining. It's the close to the end of the project that they have hired me. But for me, the most important thing is to see, whenever I will look into any issue, I'm going to see what was discussed between the parties before I joined. So if the proper records are not there, I'll be like blank on all these issues. So I know that the document control managers and everybody is there. So they are going to provide me the information whichever I want, and then my understanding of the project will be easier. So that is the reason why proper record keeping should be there from day zero of the project. As I said, that when the kickoff meeting is taking place, the minutes of those meeting needs to be issued. Any meeting which is formal meeting, the minutes needs to be issued and documented. And in all those meetings, there is a space provided for the contractor also to add in his comments. For example, the certain number of days have been provided to the contractor to reply to those meetings if he is against any item mentioned in the meeting. So he can update them, or he can tell the proper what was discussed in the meeting. Keep record of important milestones achieved during the project. Issue letters of delay and letters of concern, clearly identifying the issues at hand. Like I said, that if you're writing a letter to the contractor, it needs to be properly drafted. It should not be generic in nature. If you are mentioning anything needs to be discussed very cogently, it should not be a very lengthy letter. Like in 2-3 paragraphs, you should be able to finish that the purpose of that letter. Update minutes of meeting and monthly progress reports. Organize your record keeping. Try to invest in a good scanner. This will make life easy for all times to come. If there is no scanner, then again, you'll have hard copies. And if a person takes out a hard copy, like from a folder, he forgets to put it back at the proper place. So you cannot get that copy back again. But if the file is in a computer system, so it will be easy to retrieve any number of times you want from that system. And always keep a backup also. Just don't put all documents in one place. Keep one backup as well for all projects. So if you invest in a good scanner, this will make life easy for the REs where there are no other project controls people. So do keep a good scanner. It provides easy reference to past correspondence, contractual submissions. I will try to show you certain logs which were prepared on projects in the Gulf. So you can see how progress the correspondence logs looks like and what information they can have. And the contractual submissions. Get services of a professional document controller who can manage the project controls, projects records from day zero. Record keeping, make logs. You should not make just one file making all logs. Everything needs to be separately filed. Like correspondence incoming plus outgoing, you can make a separate Excel file. Inspection request, you can make a separate sheet. But likewise for material submittal, material inspection requests, site clarification requests, shop drawing, engineer's instructions, all these logs should be prepared on a project. So for example, if somebody asks for the material inspection request, the document controller needs to just go in that area and find that material inspection request and hand it over to the person asking for it. This is a very simplified version of the correspondence log. When this will be filled, I'll try to show you the filled version as well. There's a serial number, the letter date, and the received date. This is a very important receivable date that is the date which governs in majority of the cases when the claims are coming in for the contractor. Because letter date and received date, in some instances, there's a gap of a weeks. So we need to work with the received date when it comes as far as the claims are concerned. Then there's a letter number, subject of that letter, and if the engineer has provided its response, that letter number, date of that letter number, and remarks if any. Similarly for submittal logs, like the material submittal log or shop drawing submittal logs. So you have the serial number again, shop drawing number, revision number. If it's revision 0, 1, 2, all revisions should be reflected in this log, even if it is number 4th revision. So revision 0, subject, receive date, code, as it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, whichever code is applicable, date and remarks. Before the conclusions, I'll try to show you the log. So this is one of the, I think all of you can see the log which I've shown. This is the one of the sample logs which was prepared on a project in Dubai. You can see that there are all these things which I've discussed is from it's an incoming log. So it's from the contractor or from the employer. Reference number, the letter number, letter date. You see the receive date, sometimes it's the letter date is 28 February and the receive date was 1st March. Similarly, for other cases also, it's 1 day difference, but sometimes the difference will increase. The description, you have to be very precise. After going through the letter, you should know that what needs to be entered in here. If it's a slow progress letter, then it should be mentioned slow progress or delay or extension of time or claim or anything which is easy to go through. Then the response letter, if anything is sent in response, it needs to be written here. Like see delay in contractual completion. Clause 48.1 request for issuance. This is, I highlighted all these things to ask from the document controller to send me these, because these other things are not important to me as a claims person working at site. So only these in the letters were important to me, that what instruction was given, notification of delays, clause 14.1 program. So whatever you want, then you can simply filter by color, all those yellow colors. You can send this to the document control person and this information will come back within like half an hour, all the letters which you've asked. But just imagine that from folders, if you want this information, when they will provide you, it will take certain days, and in some cases they will say that they did not find this in the folder. So this is the problem in Pakistan, that we don't put emphasis on the proper document controlling. Another one I'll show you. This is the submittals log. Can you see the submittal log? Okay, I guess you can see all of you. So this is a sample submittal log. It's a shop drawing submittal log. And again, you can see the package number, shop drawing number. This is the revision. If I remove the filters, let me show you 1 minute. Data filter. Now, package number, shop drawing number is number 1, revision 0, 1. Latest is this one. Date received 19th April. Drawing number, description of work, and to the contractor status code. This is the code which was given to that submittal. So similarly for this is for shop drawing. Similarly, you can get it prepared for document submittals. You can make it for method statement submittals. You can make it for material submittals. So it is very easy to retrieve any information from this log. For example, if you need to know anything from this log, you just need to put in a filter and then sort it out. So this is a site clarification request log, and this is the work notification log. So I don't know how many projects in Pakistan and NESPAC we are using logs prepared like this, which is easy to retrieve. And I'll show you a sample contractor notice of delay as well. This is a sample notice of delay from one of the contractors on Dubai projects, and it is mentioned delay notice number 42. You can see how proper claims are being documented in the Gulf region or in the developed countries. So it is the subject, just go through this. We hereby place on record that following circumstances could potentially result in a delay to the time for completion of the project. ALEC received engineer's instruction reference this dated 22nd November 2015 to proceed with construction of police rooms and ramp office as per detailed scope of work attached to the aforementioned engineer's instruction. Proceed with this additional scope of works has the potential to delay our works beyond the current target completion date of 30th November 2015. Furthermore, in accordance with subclause, look, the reference is also provided. Subclause references 44.1 is for time, 53.1 is for cost. Of the contract, we hereby give notice that our intention to claim cost and time implications of this matter. So how succinct or how precise the contractor has given his notice of delay, and he has given all his intentions in this notice, and he has provided the basis on which he thinks that he is entitled to cost and entitled to time as well. I'll show you one sample appointment of engineer's representative. So this is a sample appointment of engineer's representative in the state of Qatar. This is a letter from NESPAC. So you can see that it's mentioned that what duties have been delegated to the engineer, and what I think they have mentioned which duties. No, they have not mentioned, but in some cases they mention which duties are specifically not designated to the engineer. You have been appointed as engineer's representative for the construction of Pakistan Embassy Complex in Diplomatic Enclave State of Qatar in accordance with the conditions of contract clause 2.2 and 2.3. You are hereby named as resident engineer RE for the works. As RE for the caption project, you are delegated all the duties and authorities of the engineer except those mentioned below, until or unless otherwise notified or revoked by the engineer. So you can see these duties have not been delegated to the RE, which again, it has some liabilities or some repercussions if he invokes suspension of work. RE is not allowed to suspend the works. He is not allowed to make any engineer's determination following suspension. He is not allowed to suspend lasting more than 84 days. He is not allowed to commence to do anything relevant to the commencement of works. He's not allowed to do anything regarding extension of time for completion. He cannot determine anything. He cannot determine any variation, or he cannot make any payment of claims which the contractor submits. So you can see time or cost liabilities in a project, the majority of the things they have taken away from the resident engineer. And you cannot issue default of the contractor without taking the employer on board. There's a question. In respect of claims clause, 28 days time period is for the cause of claim or completion of project. In respect of claims clause, 28 days time period is for the cause of claim or completion of the project. 28 days time period is basically that the contractor has to submit his intention in form of a notice that he, like I showed you an example, that within 28 days, the contractor has submitted the letter to the employer that this variation or instruction or any event which the contractor thinks will delay his works, he has to submit a letter to the employer within that period. So that is the reason 28 days is mentioned. There's another question that why Mr. Thomas was declared RE and not the ER as per FIDIC. That was a project specific. I don't know what was the reason behind, because this letter is not drafted or looked into by the contracts division. So the intention of this letter is just to show you what delegations are for the engineer's representative. So like this, you can see that what duties are given to the RE and what duties are not given to the RE. In this case, they have mentioned that all duties except these have been given to the RE. In this, as RE for the caption project, you delegated all the duties and authorities of the engineer except those mentioned below. So these are the exceptions. Again, there's a question in your mentioned engineer rep letter. Should not the rep communicate to engineer instead of the employer? I guess this letter. This letter, the engineer is communicating with the RE, this engineer Thomas. So this is copied to the employer. I think this should be copied to the employer. Look, it is copied to the employer and the general manager of the contractor also. So this is the, I think it addresses your question. Another question. What are effective techniques, tools for controlling project loss and to make it profitable? A major problem you're facing in Nest Park. This is, it does not come down to an individual who can make a project come into loss or profit. It is basically the collective efforts of the team. That the main reason is that if you want the project to be profitable for Nest Park, the time duration should be followed on a project. Number one, variations should be kept to the minimum. Number two, because variation induces claims of the contractor, and claims sometimes in Pakistan, the employer does not allow any changes to the cost of the project, which has been approved already. So whenever at the design phase, all the variations or changes should be included in the design, and then the project should be tendered. So the contractor needs to have a proper understanding of what he should be looking into when he's costing his project. So once he has costed his project correctly and the duration of the project is like legitimate, if it's a 1-year project, it is a 1-year project. It's not like you give 6 months to him. All these things are catered for, then the project will be profitable, I think. Can we solve Nest Park issues by using proper project planning and monitoring of our ongoing projects? this is a responsibility, like the project planning is a responsibility of the contractor. We just have to monitor it, the progress. And it will not solve NESPAC issues. It will streamline the problems. Like, for example, if there are issues coming in on the delays of the project, if you have done proper planning, it will streamline your issue. You will be it will be easy to prepare your report, the extension of time report. Or if there are certain disputes coming in, then you can address those disputes if there is proper planning. Don't you think design projects don't need any planning? They do need planning. I did not say that design projects don't need any planning. For example, when you get a project of design, you have a timeline within which you have to submit the preliminary design, then the other design, the detailed design. So there is always a timeline provided to the consultant. So you need to abide by those timelines. And if it's a project between the consultant and the employer without any contractor, then yes, you can also make a project plan, the deliverable plan, and share it with the employer that this is the way how you are going to progress on this project. There's another question. The letter of appointment should be copied to contractor too. So in this case, it has been copied to the contractor. This is the number one is the head of chancery. This is the employer. And the second is the contractor, Alatia Architectural Construction. So this was one of the sample letters which I wanted to show you that the RE, when he is doing anything, he needs to read these delegations again and again, that what he is allowed to do and what he is not allowed to do. So he should not overtake his delegation. You're welcome. Okay, now one more thing I wanted to show you.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
You're still continuing? Proper question?
Yeah. No, I'm just sharing the answers to the questions raised side by side. So I'm getting the questions and I'm answering them.
That's good. Done. Chale.
Yeah. Okay, this is minutes of the kickoff meeting on one of the projects. This is the meeting date, place of the meeting, recorded by the engineer or the contractor. Usually the engineer records the meeting. Project name, contract number, subject, kickoff meeting, attendees. This is the number one is the from the employer side, whoever attended, you have to write it down, then the consultant side, and then the contractor side. You have to write all names who had attended with names and delegations and the company. So these are basically the issues discussed in a kickoff meeting. Introduction, purpose of meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to conduct kickoff meeting for the project, whichever the project name. Contract particulars. Main contract. Letter of intent. Notice to commence. Commencement date, it's mentioned as 19 February 2017. Time for completion is also mentioned. Possession of site, the access to site, which will be given is 19 February 2017. The defects notification, 12 months. Contract documents, date of preparation of signing of contract agreement in due course. Okay, now this is the deliverables which the contractor has to submit within 14 days. So the importance of kickoff meeting, the contractor should also be told that all these things he has to submit within 14 days of the commencement date. The performance bond, list of principal staff assignments in attendance at site. These can vary from project to project. It's not necessary that all these things will be the same in all projects. You have to go through your contract documents. This is just, I'm showing you the sample. So program for the works, cash flow, safety program, initial product list, evidence, professional indemnity insurance, quality assurance manual, proposed list of materials. I will just quickly go through it. Administration and reporting, correspondence. All correspondence with the engineer's representative should be sent to collected from the engineer's project office. All correspondence should be addressed and issued to the engineer's representative. Send a copy to employer and quantity surveyor except for the following. Claims notices should be addressed and issued to send a copy to engineer and QS. Working hours, contract administration forms, because they have to be standardized. Then the meetings, dates and timing of site meetings, progress meeting, technical meeting, and safety meetings. All these dates and meetings have to be specified. Reporting, contractors, monthly statements, the costing, mobilization and site establishment, all these issues. The construction matters. Contractors' design matters. If it's an EPC, for example, contract, then the contractor is required to submit his proposal for design deliverables as per contract and fulfillment of his obligations under clause 5.2 of the conditions of contract for engineer's review and approval. So if for any given project, you have to go through the contract document and go through the clauses of the contract. If there is any submittal or anything which requires attention of the employer or the engineer or the contractor, it's prudent to mention it in the kickoff meeting and decide what's the course of action on that item. Coordination matters. Provide overall coordination of the works, including coordination with authorities. Coordinate shared access to workspaces. When there are too many different contractors, then they have to have a coordination plan also to tell that this date I will need access to this area. So the other contractor is also aware that he has to provide access to that area in that particular date. So you have to coordinate with other contractors as well. The contractor submittals. The contractor is required to always include in his submittals appropriate contract references and descriptions such as drawing title, number, and specification. These are some basic things which on any project you have to discuss and agree on with the contractor. General responsibilities. The contractor shall design, execute, and complete the works in accordance with the contract and shall remedy in the works. So basically, these are the things like 6 pages for a kickoff meeting for a project which just started. So you tell or you spell out all the responsibilities of the contractor in this kickoff meeting and hand it over to the contractor. And as I said, we have to mention this thing at the bottom. These minutes were prepared by the engineer or the contractor, but in most cases the engineer. Any addition and or omission must be brought to the attention of the engineer within 3 days of receipt. Otherwise, these minutes will be considered as true and accurate record of the meeting. Sometimes the contractor, after like 6 months or 1 year, they say that we don't agree to the minutes which you issued. So that is not the proper time. Then it's the time has already lapsed. So this is the 3 days time you give after receipt of the minutes, not at the time of issuance of letter. So the receive date, as I told you, is very important in any transmittal. Okay, there's another question. How to proactively manage the project risks associated with contractors' performance during the course of construction. Proactively means at the same time. So at the same time, you can only write the appropriate letters and or notices also. If you think that the lapses of the contractor needs a formal notice, issue that notice. If you think that a letter will be sufficient, so you write a letter, but it should not be a generic letter. You have to be specific about the lapse or the contractor's performance you're talking about. And ideally, it should be with the proper, like refer to the program of works the contractor has submitted Because once you tell the contractor that you were supposed to start something like, for example, on 20th May, today is 27th May, so 7 days have already been elapsed. So you have to record all these things. So if you record all these things, then the project will not have too many issues at a later stage. Another question, we are facing almost on all projects regarding issue of increase in quantities. The Auditor General always, excuse me 1 minute. Just give me a second. Assalamu alaikum.
I hope everyone's enjoying the session or and all right, back to you.
Yeah, sorry, I had to receive an important call.
No issue.
So the question was, again, I'll go through the question. We are facing almost on all projects regarding issue of increase in quantities. Auditor General always made audit observations on increase in quantities. As per our understanding, variation order in not required for increase in quantities, but audit always asks for variation order in case of increase in quantities. Please explain in light of variation clause that is variation order is necessary for the case of increase in quantities, and how should we explain this to audit? For increase in quantities, there is a specific, I think, percentage up to which the contract allows for the increase. But if increases increase, the quantities increase from that limit, then the overall contract amount is to be revised. So the adequate provisions of the contract needs to be referred to in this case to the Auditor General. But again, the increase in quantities, because it increases the cost, which was approved in the PC1, that's the reason that when that cost is increasing, the auditors do have a problem with this. But again, if it is backed up with proper contractual provisions, then you can refer to those provisions in the audit objections. And you can always take help from the contracts team in NESPAC. We have been providing assistance to a lot of project management divisions on audit objections. Question is that in Pakistan, usually client project director is the engineer. What would be the adequacy in regard of clause 67.1, the engineer's decision? If he's the engineer decision has to be given by the engineer. If the employer has not kept the position of the hired the position of the engineer, and he is acting himself as the engineer, so he is responsible to provide the engineer's decision in such cases. Because the basic idea behind an engineer's decision is that the employer knows that the contractor's intention is to go towards arbitration if he's not giving a proper response, if he's being impartial, if he's being unfair. So this is his last opportunity for the employer to rectify the fault. And if he will not rectify the fault, then things will go out of his hand towards the arbitrator, who's again going to look into all the different the areas and the different discussions held between the parties, and then he will come up with a reasoned answer. So engineer decision is the adequacy. I think if there's no engineer, then the ED is to be given by the employer. Another question is, if particular one item quantities increase beyond contract limits, then if it is increased beyond the contractual limits, then you have to change the contract or make an amendment to the contract, because there are reasons for the increase in quantities. Whether I don't know what were the reasons for the increase in quantities. If there are proper reasons, then you have to make an amendment to the contract to register all the changes. Okay, I'll just go back to this. Sorry, this is finished. There is one monthly progress report as well. I'll just quickly go through the monthly progress report on a project in Dubai. This was one of the projects in Dubai World Central, Jebel Ali Airport. I will just quickly go through the monthly progress report and what information is contained. The idea behind is just to show you what the best international practices regarding the progress monitoring or the correspondences which have been used on international projects. So the executive summary, as in all reports, there's an executive summary. The cumulative plan was 66%, the cumulative actual is 24%. So any executive reading through this summary is going to understand that the project is in delay. Design progress, architecture submissions are in progress, structural design, steel and concrete, MEP design, electric low voltage, special airport systems design, progress of works offsite, onsite. So just I'm going to quickly go through these tables. Executive summary of progress, these are all like actual percentage completion, 66% upwards. Quality assurance and quality control, inspection reports closed, is not applicable in this report. Engineering SCRs closed 40%, shop drawings closed 76%, 79%. I think this tick mark upwards is from the previous, is relative to the previous report. I'm not sure, but I think so. Compared to, yeah, it's written compared to previous month. So it shows that from previous month it is increased. Now this is also increased. If you want to go again, actual percentage completion increased from the previous month. This actual outcome increased, planned also increased. Progress percentage to date, planned versus actual, 26 days forecast variance in completion. This 24 days, all the planners on this in this session, they will understand that this is coming from the baseline program, the updated program on the data date. This 26 days, the program went beyond the completion date. So they have mentioned 26 days forecast variance. Key accomplishments. This is the program submitted. The baseline program revision 0 was submitted on this day. And the status is that it was rejected by the employer. And the letter number is this one, dated this one. And this is being returned to the contractor for required revision. Now he is going to submit revision 1. And if that is also not approved, then revision 2. Unless and until the baseline is approved, you cannot do monitoring of the project. Health, safety, secure. Sorry, there are some more questions. Any difference between variation order and variation statement? Order is basically an instruction, or this entitles the contractor to perform any like additional task. It may have a positive variation or a negative variation also. If you remove any item of work, that is to be removed. And the variation statement is, I'm not sure, but what I think from your wording is that it is the cumulative effect of all the variations on a project that up to that date. For example, today, all the variations, whether positive or negative, the statement is known as a variation statement. But the variation order is for a particular particular instruction. Question is why to make contract amendment in case of quantities increase, as we have variation clause which support increase in quantities even without issuing variation order. My reason for saying amendment was that if it increases the contractual limits, if the contractual limits, it's within the contractual limits, then the effect of variations is not that it's an endless process. You can keep on adding new things to the contractor scope. There is a limit to everything. So if that limit is crossed, then the perfect thing is to have an amendment to the contract. because certainly the contractor will not be willing to perform all the contract variations under the agreed costs or agreed prices of those items. So he will need a revision also. So for that purpose, contract amendment is, I think, necessary and prudent. If a contractor questions the impartiality of the engineer falsely, how to deal with it contractually? Is there any relevant provision in the FIDIC? There is no relevant provision in FIDIC to deal with impartiality, but there is a provision in which it is mentioned that the engineer has to act impartially and fair when he has to determine anything. So, as you said, that there is a false allegation on the engineer regarding impartiality. So, false allegations needs to be supported with documentary evidence. If the contractor has some evidence to prove it, so you have to make a counter argument. And if he doesn't have an argument, then I don't think you need to worry about the false allegations. So everything is just through documentary evidence under the contractual law as well. If you have documentary evidence, your case will succeed. If you don't have any evidence, you cannot make a case. What about if contractor is not meeting or ignoring health safety requirements given in contract and client wants to complete the project on fast track? Again, the purpose of the engineer is to highlight the lapses of the contractor. So in such cases, you need to keep on highlighting the cases. For example, if certain accident happens at site, anybody who is investigating will see that whose lapse is it, whether it was the engineer's lapse or it was the contractor's lapse or the employer's lapse. So on part of the engineer, it should be clearly mentioned that engineer was giving those instructions or giving those non-conformances to the contractor, and it was the contractor who was not acting on it. And you need to have a proper document in which you have highlighted this issue to the employer as well, that the contractor is continuously and persistently ignoring the safety standards which was mentioned in the project contract. But audit always made objections post bid amendments. Again, for any specific objections of the audit, you can always take the advice from the contracts department, because all the project records relevant to that objection will be reviewed properly and then a proper response will be provided. But the auditors, they're not very professional people. They're not engineers, or they don't know the terminology is used in FIDIC also. So it's always good that you go to the contracts team and have a word with them on this. Why we don't have HSE personnel from consultant side? Here, normally environment guy is trying to do HSE. Yeah, HSE personnel is basically, it is from the consultant side also, a person is designated as HSE manager, and on the contractor side also there's an HSE person. Here in the Gulf, I'm telling that everybody is equally important on the contractor side, on the consultant side. When they will be at par, they can easily communicate with each other and have issues resolved. But if there are no HSE guys from the contractor or the consultant, then people will have issues in this area, health safety. Okay, coming back to this, there are no more questions, so I'll just come back to this progress report. Quality assurance and quality control. These were the number of return code 4 on March 24. Quality assurance plan, and the project quality assurance plan on, again, return code 3. So commercial status, risk status. Key issues: delay in submission of design deliverables, delay in submission of shop drawings and materials, no NCRs or non-conformance reports issued till date. In case of health safety, it will be highlighted in the progress report as well that the contractor was not performing as per the health standards. These are the abbreviations. Project overview. These are the contract particulars. These are, I think, in NESPAC projects as well. Project description, the brief scope of work which has to be performed by the contractor. Key performance indicators, SPI, earned value, planned value, and this variance. You can see all these things, quality, HSCC. This is the table. Time control. Again, the delays coming in. The below table shows the project milestones as per the baseline program. As per the baseline program. This is again the consented baseline program. For the baseline program and program update, refer to program, attached program. Completion of works. Baseline milestone was on 29 June 2017. Current forecast milestone is 26 July 2017. 26 days. This is graphical representation, percentage completed versus actual, planned versus actual, the S curve. Critical path update. Again, for planners, it will, I think it will be there. 1 month look ahead. This is also important, that what activities the contractor plans to perform in the next 1 month. Similarly, detailed progress, the submittals, how many are submitted, how many are code 1, 2, how many are under review, and how many are rejected. So the progress report can also be different from all projects. It's not necessarily that you have to copy all these things, but majority of the things, the idea is the same, that there should be an area for mentioning the cost items, the time items, the health and safety items. So all these items, they need to have a separate area in the progress monitoring report in which you have to highlight the progress in that particular month. So this is time claims. Delay in remitting the advance payment. In this case, I think the contractor has submitted notices without any even dates or any other information. So these are the 3 issues which have been highlighted. Cost control. Again, the IPCs, how many are given? Variation orders. No variation orders have been given. Cost claims. These 2 are the cost claims submitted by the contractor. Yeah. Quality assurance and quality control. Again, all these data, usually the planning people make the progress reports and they take these data from the relevant people working at site. So they take these data about the shop drawing submittals and they put it in the progress report. Status of engineering submittals as a pie chart. Site clarification requests. Non-conformance reports. Let me go quickly. Audits, contract records. This one, and HSSE, sustainability, construction progress photographs. This is very important to put photographs also for any progress report. As you say, picture is worth 1,000 words. So you show date and you show the picture that this was the progress at this time and date. So this is for planning people, the Primavera programs. At the end, document submittal log. Usually what the log which I showed you, they just print out the pages and they attach to this appendix. This is HSSC statistics, they attach something there. And this is the pro forma of health, safety, and security statistical report. Variation order tracking log, contract records. So these are the appendices. And this is it regarding this. So let me come back to the presentation. So I've showed you the actual logs also prepared on the projects. Now let's look at the conclusions from today's session. 1 minute, please. Hello. Yeah. Okay, no problem. Okay. 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 Thank you. Bye. During quarantine, I have to perform a second PCR today. First already taken and now the second one. Alhamdulillah, everything is going negative, but still they have to be very sure before they release me from quarantine. Okay, the conclusions. Make a note of the form of contract being used on your projects. Like, for example, is it a remeasured contract or any other form of contract? You have to take a note. Always keep updated copies of contract documents, including project drawings and specifications for ease of reference. REs should keep all updated copies in their office, and they should file or archive the previous versions in the store. They should not keep all those revisions in only the updated copies should need to be in the office. Keep referring to the important clauses because it's very important for contract administration that you mention the clauses which are appropriate to the correspondence. Keep your senior management aware of the key issues, especially time and possible variations. In most of the cases, the management is not aware of all what is happening at site, but it is your responsibility that all major issues should be in hierarchical order. You need to tell your project manager, who will tell his like the vice president or the head of the division. And if he considers it's important, then he will tell to the managing director also. So you need to update your seniors about what is important. Maintain your site diary. Whatever is happening every day, you need to keep a diary of the site, and that will help you in your daily life. If something happens, then you can go to that date and see what was actually happening at that day. Know your duties and responsibilities. As I told you, the delegation, don't go beyond your delegation. So it is very important that you remain within the boundaries of your delegation. Never act beyond your delegation, and do not be afraid of writing. Whenever something comes in, you need to be very precise and write a reply letter. If you're not sure, share it with your seniors and get a proper advice. Take advice from the specialty divisions as well if you want, because any letter going out from NESPAC should be proper and very professional. And the last thing is that enjoy your work. You are at site because you are a professional engineer, so you should enjoy your work. So that was the end of my presentation, and there are, I think, some more questions, so I'll just go through them. EOT to be dealt by in EI or ER. EOT, the project management team who is at site, they have all the documents and all the records available with them. So they will prepare the draft, or they will prepare the first report, the site people. They will prepare that report and they will send it to the project manager for review. Once the project manager thinks that this is a right report, then you are going to send it to the employer for his review and recommendation. If the employer accepts it, then you give it to the recommendation, you award it to the contractor. So basically the process is then the engineer at site prepares a report and he sends it to the project manager. And if everything is okay from the NESPAC side, then it goes to the employer with a request of approval as well. And once the employer approves it, then you award the EOT. Our bidding documents does not have much regarding the requirements of planning, monitoring, and reporting. Can NESPA take an initiative to improve bidding documents rather using traditional one? I think it is need of the hour that we need to take a stand on all these things, that if quality needs to be there, then proper controls should be there on the project. On bigger projects, we do have proper controls, like for example, on dam projects which NESPAC is taking, we do have contract managers, planning managers, and everyone working at site. But for other projects also, like building projects being undertaken in different cities of Pakistan, I think we need to have certain amount of quality and control in the project. Any other question? Because I think I've gone through all the questions. If there is any other questions, I'm willing to, I'm here to provide information as much as I can.
I think आपका भी बहुत टाइम लिया and हम लोग you also need to rest, and you also you know,
It was a wonderful session. I think it was a good session. Personally, I don't like the Zoom sessions. I like physical interactions as well, that you people are sitting in front of you. As I could not see any face, it was a little bit difficult for me to continuously speak for 2 hours.
I know, no. Lekin people have, there's a huge, and I'm impressed at the number of questions which were coming in, because this is the need of the hour, especially in case in the current scenario of NESPAC. People are very much, they have a lot of issues on, especially on contracts. And if a contract of a company goes well, or wo sahi ho, or usko implementation ho, then, you know, we would have, we would have been somewhere.
Yeah, basically in Pakistan, all rules and regulations are there, but the implementation is not there, unfortunately. So we need to work towards implementation as well. Like in FIDIC also, all contract clauses are there for different issues, but implementation is not there. For example, if consultants' payments are being delayed, the delayed payment interest or other things are not being paid by the employer. So the implementation, if that is being ensured, then I think issues are going to die down by themselves.
You guys have any more questions? तो फिर आप आसिफ साहब का he shared his email, and we'll inshallah definitely try to get him back on line before I think the quarantine is over. Otherwise, he's going to get busy. So, ठीक है आसिफ साहब, thank you, so kind of you for taking our time.
Thank you very much.
Wish you good luck in your endeavor. Make Pakistan proud, make NESPAC proud. And all we are all with you for all your achievements. Or inshallah, let's hope to see you again in Pakistan whenever you're here. We'll have to. We would love to see you in NESPAC again visiting. Or thank you to all. ये form share हुआ है. Please इसको fill करके भेज दीजिएगा. Or evaluation forms, and so that you guys are eligible for the CPD points. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Have fun. Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz, everybody. This is the end of the session. Thank you.